Right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my series of videos on the sights and attractions of central London. If you haven't met me before, my name is Magnus Nielsen, and I'm creating this set of videos just to show people what London looks like in the year 2026. Started in 2024. And I've worked all the way through the previous year, last year, and now I'm up to 2026, and I've still got plenty to do. So without any further ado, let me just turn this around. I'm in Embankment Gardens at the present moment, very close to Embankment Underground station. I've already done a video on Embankment Gardens, but what I want to do now is just turn this so that you can see a block of flats called the Adelphi, which was built in the 1930s on the site of the original Adelphi block of flats that was really created in the 1750s. They were pulled down to make way for this, and there are still some people who think actually that was a terrible mistake, but anyway, there we are. That's what happens. That's very typical of things in London. I'm just moving around here just to show you what there is to see and do when you are here, if you're visiting us from abroad, or if you're actually born in London or you live in London, you want to know a bit more about the city that you live in, just to give you the benefit of the experience that I have had built up over a year, over a lifetime in fact. And as I say, I've already done a video on Embankment Gardens and the area around Charing Cross station, which is directly in front of me. This went up in the 1980s. As we walk along, we make our way into Villiers Street, which was named after George Villiers, the Duke of Buckingham, who was a very close friend and associate of King James I. He was also Lord High Admiral of the Fleet. Now here we have a building that once claimed to be the smallest shop in London. It probably still is actually, Gordon's Deli. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the famous Gordon's Wine Bar. Now this was a wine bar for a long time before wine bars became very popular in the 1980s. So that is Gordon's, and I'm happy to recommend it to you. Full of atmosphere. And this, ladies and gentlemen, if I just take a step back a bit to show you Kipling House. Now this place, actually there's a blue plaque there to commemorate the fact that Rudyard Kipling, the author and poet, used to live there at one time. He was the man who wrote the Just So stories and the Jungle Book and a number of other works. He's not very highly thought of today because he's regarded as somebody who was very pro-British imperialism, but in fact he had a very mixed views about the British Empire. He wrote a number of poems, which one of those was called The White Man's Burden, basically showing what a terrible burden the empire was on British people. He also wrote the poem If You Can Keep Your Head When All About Are Losing Theirs and Blaming It on You, and that is actually one of the most popular poems in the English language, so it's worth noting that this is the place where Rudyard Kipling used to live. He was born in Bombay way back in Victorian times and lived here when he was in London. He was rich enough to buy himself a home out in the country, and he died there in the 1930s. Right, so what I'm doing is now just coming down to go past Gordon's Wine Bar. You see the advantage of going to the wine bar there is that you can come out here on a sunny day or on a dry day and you can enjoy your meal in your drink. And yes, it's a very agreeable place. So here, over on the right hand side, is what remains of the Duke of Buckingham's Watergate. Now, we've seen this before, but it was the special gateway to the house called York House, which was further up Buckingham Street, which was occupied by George Villiers, the Duke of Buckingham. And there was a garden, obviously, all the way down to the banks of the River Thames, and then there was the River Thames at high tide. You could bring your boats all the way up here, and you could disembark and then walk all the way up to your house. And that was in the early 1600s. The son of George Villiers later sold the land on to a man called Nicholas Barban, who was one of the great property speculators after the Great Fire of 1666, to have all this area developed for housing. He did it on the condition that his father's name and title could be commemorated in the street. So you have on the right hand side what used to be George Street, which is now called York Buildings, and over on the left hand side Villiers Street, which I've already spoken about. And this was Buckingham Street, and it took you up to Duke Street, which is now called John Adams Street, and a little bit further forward there was a place called Of Alley. But anyway, we'll talk about that perhaps another time. What I want to do here, just before we move on, is to point out the various things of interest around here. Samuel Pepys in this house, formerly standing on the site. So it's not the same house. Samuel Pepys, the diarist, born in 1633, died in 1703. This is where he lived. Obviously not while he was writing his diary, that was in the City of London, near the Tower of London, but this is where he lived as a much older man. Also Robert Harley, the Earl of Oxford, 1661 to 1724. He was effectively the Prime Minister to Queen Anne, who, this was in the early 1700s. They didn't have Prime Ministers until Robert Walpole, but he was the man who gave advice and counsel to Queen Anne, and so he was really the Prime Minister before they actually created Prime Ministers. Also another person commemorated here is William Petty. Oh, is it Etty? I beg your pardon. Sorry, I thought it was William Petty. Painter, beg his pardon. William Painter, and Clarkson Stanfield, another painter. So this was very much an artistic district. Anyway, it was actually in this house that William Etty and Clarkson Stanford actually lived. So we'll just cross over here and go round, and we can see it this time a green plaque which commemorates a man called William Smith. Now that's a common enough name, but it was he actually reckoned to be the father of English geology, and he was the man who produced the first geological map of England and Wales, showing you how the various strata which were laid out in different geological periods. And it was really the foundation of methodical geological science. Now what we have up here, let's have a look. Again, there is some sort of commemorative plaque, and frankly I can hardly read it from this site. May have to go back and tell you more about that one later on. Anyway, this is I'll try again. This again is another. Oh yes, now this says this is where Samuel Pepys lived from 1679 to 1688. So there's a dispute between those two houses as to which one was the general one in which Samuel Pepys the diarist lived. Oh, right, okay, so this is a brown plaque. Samuel Pepys lived there, so they say. Well, I'm not going to get into that argument, but anyway, this is Buckingham Street, and we're going to go forward and then turn into John Adams Street that used to be called Duke Street. Of course, it's possible that Samuel Pepys may have lived in one house and then moved into the neighbouring house at a later date. That's just something for the historians to argue about. It's not an argument I want to get into. Right, this is John Adams Street. John Adam was a very famous architect of the late 18th and early 19th century. Famous for the Grecian style of his buildings. So you can see John Adams Street. This used to be Duke Street. Just make our way down here. George Court, which commemorates the name of George Villiers, and here we have, as I say, York buildings. Once upon a time the London home of the Archbishop of York used to be on this site, fronting into the Strand. No longer. Right, we'll make our way down here, and actually what I want to do is just head down here a little way to show you the arches. So if we go down here, these are the arches of the Adelphi. These were built, as I say, in the mid to late 1700s. As a place where they could store merchandise that had arrived in London from different parts of the world. And that will take you all the way down. Not a great deal to look at, if we're going to be brutally honest. And I say these are the arches which were commemorated in the very famous song by Flanagan and Allen, Underneath the Arches. Underneath the arches, I dream my dreams away, pavement for a pillow, da dee 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 dee. Right. Okay. So, there were two brothers involved in the design of the Adelphi. That's why it's called Adelphi. Adelphi is the Greek word for brothers. And there were John Adam and Robert Adam. Over the road you have the site of the home of Thomas Rowlandson, one of the great cartoonists and caricaturists who lived in a house on this site. Obviously not this house, but on this site, born 1757, died 1827. And here Durham House Street marks the site of a house that used to belong to the Bishop of Durham. So the bishops of medieval England used to have their houses, their London houses, along the Strand, and their names are still commemorated here. Now, over on the right hand side, Robert Street, and you can see for yourself the modern building of the Adelphi, which is really a block of flats and apartments. But so I say they had to pull down the original Adelphi. We get some idea of what the previous buildings used to look like, the ones that were designed by the Adam brothers, by the buildings immediately in front of us. But before we go on, what I'd like to do at this point is just take us out so we can have a look at the Royal Society of Arts, their headquarters here. Originally the Royal Society for the Encouragement of Arts, Manufacture and Commerce, and created in 1754, and they received their royal charter in 1847. And their mission was to embolden enterprise, to enlarge science, to refine art, to improve manufacture, and to extend commerce. Basically what they do is they give examination awards and prizes to people on merit. So this house, the House of the Royal Society for the Encouragement of Arts, Manufactures and Commerce, foundation stone laid in 1722. That's when they moved here. Completed in April of 1774, and it was designed again by the architects Robert and James Adams. So they're all architects in that family. But I just want to go a little bit further forward and to show you basically what London has lost by the demolition of the original Adelphi. Now, this building is very typical of the style in which John and Robert Adams used to design the buildings. You can see for yourself they're very much influenced by Greek architecture and patterns. There you have it. We've got another blue pluck over the road, and I can't resist the attempt to go and have a look at blue plucks whenever I see them. Sir Richard Arkwright. There we have it, 1732 to 1792. Industrialist and inventor lived here in this particular house. So at one time, what you had along the Thames frontage, you had a terrace, all in this style. But as I say, they pulled it down in the 1930s, which was a bit sad, really, I suppose. But of course, the thing is, with the modern Adelphi, you can get so many more people, so it's more economically efficient, I suppose. Anyway, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's our little bit for today. What I'm doing now is just walking up to the Strand. I won't go. I shall need to do another video on the Strand. So I'm actually going to round up at this point. Just take us up to the Strand, and I shall just close down. And we'll do the Strand on another day. Hopefully another bright sunny day like today. Yesterday it was raining, pouring with rain, so that's why I didn't come out, but I thought I'd take the advantage here. So, just to show you, this is the Strand. Over on my left hand side, the road leads down to Trafalgar Square. Over on my right hand side, it takes you all the way up to Aldwych. And beyond these buildings we have the area known as Covent Garden, and I'll be doing all that in future videos. For the time being, I shall just say thank you very much for listening to me. Please like, share, subscribe, leave any comments you may wish to do so in the comments box. I'm always happy to read them, and as I say, I'll just say bye bye for now. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Over and out.